Nelson Mandela, freedom fighter, liberator of my people in South Africa. Should it become necessary that I deal with the devil to ensure the success of my mission, then so be it. So in response to your question, Mr. Ted Koppel, for my association with Fidel Castro, Yasser Arafat, and Muammar Gaddafi, I owe no apology. Interviewing Nelson Mandela on a TV show. Ted Koppel was the interviewer. I want you to know, he wanted Mandela to condemn Muammar Gaddafi, Fidel Castro, Yasser Arafat, right there on TV. Mandela said, these people helped me when apartheid was on the rise. I dealt with them out of necessity, so I do not apologize. You hear? Though it grieves me to see the people suffering, but chains of bondage have been placed on my head to impede my progress. And then he said, thorns and thistles have been laid on my bed to curtail my rest. I've been tortured and suffered immensely. They isolate me, incarcerate me. Still, in spite of their barbarous cruelty, I will never apologize
for my identity.
And then he said, no apology for my collar. It is part of me. I'm wearing it bravely with honor, pride and dignity. How can I say sorry for a birthright made proud by my forefathers? A skin that blends with the darkness of night, yet distinguishes me from others. There were times I know because of it, tears of sorrow had filled my eyes. But the Lord made me free in spirit, and I do not apologize. You hear? You scratch your head and continue explaining that chains of bondage have been placed on my head to impede my progress. And then he said, thorns and thistles have been laid on my bed to curtail my rest. They subject me to gross inhumanity, brutality, hostility. But no matter how rough their tactics be, I will never
apologize for my identity.
Tell them, come on. I owe no apology personally. I have done no wrong. And what I have endured physically have made me more strong. How can I be ashamed of a mind that refuses to be twisted? A heart as warm as the morning sunshine, a character so gifted with these trials and tribulations. I am fulfilling destiny in my quest for emancipation. I owe no apology. You hear? Sit down there and feel his joke I'm making, but chains of bondage have been placed on my head to impede my progress. And then the man said, thorns and thistles have been laid on my bed to curtail my rest. I've had my share of pain and misery. It was ghastly, downright nasty. They try hard, but they fail miserably. Cause I never apologize
for my identity.
No. The last thing he said, no apology for my culture. Lord, it suits me fine. The folklore of all my ancestors makes me feel sublime. I am not repentant of a music that expresses how I feel. These sweet melodies come from deep in my soul, enriching all my ideals. He said the rhythm does give me courage, and the lyrics does make me wise. So in spite of all the advantage, I do not apologize. You hear? Though it grieves me to see the people suffering, but chains of bondage have been placed on my head to impede my progress. Thorns and thistles have been laid on my bed to curtail my rest. Their exercises were in futility. That's when they jam me with heavy psychotherapy. But they surrendered while I'm shouting victory, 'cause I'll never apologize. He said, I am Nelson Mandela, freedom fighter, liberator of my people in South Africa. Should it become necessary that I deal with the devil to ensure the success of my mission, then so be it. So in response to your question, Mr. Ted Koppel, for my association with Fidel Castro, Yasser Arafat, and Muammar Gaddafi, I owe no apology. Interviewing Nelson Mandela on a TV show, Ted Koppel was the interviewer. I want you to know, he wanted Mandela to condemn Muammar Gaddafi, Fidel Castro, Yasser Arafat, right there on TV. Mandela said, these people helped me when apartheid was on the rise. I dealt with them out of necessity, so I do not apologize. You hear? Though it grieves me to see the people suffering, but chains of bondage have been placed on my head to impede my progress. And then he said, thorns and thistles have been laid on my bed to curtail my rest. I've been tortured and suffered immensely. They isolate me, incarcerate me. Still in spite of their barbarous cruelty, I will never apologize
for my identity.
And then he said, no apology for my color. It is part of me. I'm wearing it bravely with honor, pride and dignity. How can I say sorry for a birthright made proud by my forefathers? A skin that blends with the darkest of night, yet distinguishes me from others. There were times I know because of it, tears of sorrow had filled my eyes. But the Lord made me free in spirit, and I do not apologize. You hear? You scratch your head and continue explaining that chains of bondage have been placed on my head to impede my progress. And then he said, thorns and thistles have been laid on my bed to curtail my rest. They subject me to gross inhumanity, brutality, hostility. But no matter how rough their Statics be. I will never apologize
for my identity.
Tell them. I owe no apology personally. I have done no wrong. And what I have endured physically have made me more strong. How can I be ashamed of a mind that refuses to be twisted? A heart as warm as the morning sunshine, a character so gifted with these trials and tribulations. I am fulfilling destiny in my quest for emancipation. I owe no apology. You hear? Sit down there and feel this joke I'm making, but chains of bondage have been placed on my head to impede my progress. And then the man said, thorns and thistles have been laid on my bed to curtail my rest. I've had my share of pain and misery. It was ghastly, downright nasty. They try hard, but they fail miserably. Cause I'll never apologize
for my identity.
No. The last thing he said, no apology for my culture. Lord, it suits me fine. The folklore of all my ancestors makes me feel sublime. I am not repentant of a music that expresses how I feel. These sweet melodies come from deep in the soul, enriching all my ideals. He said the rhythm does give me courage, and the lyrics does make me wise. So in spite of all the advantage, I do not apologize. You hear? Though it grieves me to see the people suffering, but chains of bondage have been placed on my head to impede my progress. Thorns and thistles have been laid on my bed to curtail my rest. Their exercises were in futility. That's when they jam me with heavy psychotherapy. But they surrendered while I'm shouting victory. Cause I never apologize for my identity.
Never, never. Never. Never apologize for your identity. Whenever you apologize for your identity, you're giving up your humanity. Your identity is that which you, the individual, identifies with. And if you don't identify with anything, you are nothing. Never, never apologize for your identity. You have a right to critique your own. You have a right to rebuke your own. But never, never apologize for your identity. I've been saying on this program, night in, night out, there is a grand plan for Africans to start apologizing for their identity and then rejecting their identity. The day you apologize and reject your identity, you are a slave again. And that's what they want. Not the physical plantation. There's no physical plantation to take us on. But Marcus Garvey's words in 1937 in Menelik Hall, Nova Scotia, in Canada, speaking to some Africans there before he left to come to the West Indies on a trip. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery, because that's where they're going for the mental. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but yourself can free your mind. Some say it's just a part of it. But we got to fulfill the book, and the book is the human book. Never, black people, never apologize for your identity, because no other racial or ethnic group in the world has done that. No other ethnic group in the world apologizes for its identity. Good evening and welcome to Politics 101. It's Friday night and it's Politics 101. The Mighty Sparrow, the perfect Calypso, taking an interview with Nelson Mandela and Ted Koppel 35 years ago. It was 1990. Nelson Mandela had just come out of prison and had come to the United States for the first time. Ted Koppel was the doyen of white American broadcasting. He had a show called Night, and I think it's Nightline. Nightline, I think. And I remember stately African sitting across. Mr. Mandela, will you take the opportunity to condemn Fidel Castro and Muammar Gaddafi? And Mandela sat up like an African king that he was. Mr. Koppel, you do not tell me who I must associate with. And the rest is history. And as the Calypsonian is wont to do, is to take that interview and turn it into poetry and song. I remember the next day going on campus, predominantly black university, the University of District of Columbia, UDC, and nobody said anything. We just watched each other with our chest out, because this is 35 years ago. Here's a black man talking back to a white man, talking back. We had heard about Malcolm X and Stokely Carmichael talking back in the 60s. But here was Mandela talking back. You know the problem they have with people like me and Ogunseye and Vincent Alexander and some of us? You know the problem? We talk back to them. They take for granted we talk back to them, because the overlords of Guyana feel that you must not talk, they must holler on you, bark on you, and you shut up. We talk back. It's part of the African tradition. When you all surrender the right to talk back, you surrender your right to be free human beings. Mandela was expressing African self-determination. We determine who we speak to, who our friends are. Bob Marley has said it in another way. We are what we are, and that's the way it's going to be. That's talking back to the powers that be. Self-determination, independence. Thorns and thistles have been placed on my head, articulating African suffering and saying that suffering was meant to wipe out our identity, wipe out our humanity. He's taking it away from Nelson Mandela and say, my suffering represents the greatest suffering of African people. And of course, making some equation there with Christ, with the thorns of thistles on my head. And that is why they don't want us to talk about suffering. That's when we talk about suffering, we ain't complaining. We talk about suffering. We remind them it's historical memory. You're reminding them that you are not going to do that to us again, whether you're white, black, brown, pink, or blue. That is why they don't want us to talk about slavery. They don't want us to talk. Because it's them we just get the passion from, the memory of suffering. I will never apologize for my identity. Never. Your identity is all you have. All you have. Walter Rodney said, if you use my race to dehumanize me, I'm going to use my race to humanize myself. You introduce race, Mr. Racist. You pass a judgment on this color. All right? But I'm going to use this color and the experience, the thorns and the thistles of that judgment. And I'm going to turn it back on you. You create the race of dehumanization, and I'm going to create the race of humanization. That is what they cannot take in Guyana today with some of us. David Hines is stuck in the 70s and stuck in the plantation too, and stuck in the Middle Passage too, and you are not going to get me to stop it. And I'm going to say to African people every day, remember the Middle Passage, remember the plantation. It's not your shame, it's your overcoming. Resistance, African resistance. Sometimes we play with it. We play with it. But no one will stop us. No. I'm not ashamed of my color, says Sparrow, paraphrasing Mandela. I'm not afraid of my culture. I give the world in song, in dance, in word, in painting. I give the world its conscience. Black beauty. When we say black is beautiful, we're not just talking about physical beauty. We're talking about mental and intellectual beauty. That's what these here today can't take. We are not ugly intellectually. We are beautiful intellectually. Beautiful. We give the world books to read. Oh, Europe underdeveloped Africa, capitalism and slavery. They have to read it in their universities. They came before Columbus, black skin, white mask. They have to read it so they can humanize themselves. Somebody asked me, why did you teach at white universities and not black universities? Black universities have to learn blackness, but it's not only black people have to learn blackness. White people have to learn about slavery too. White people have to learn about the Middle Passage too. White people have to learn about colonialism too. And brown people and red people, because if they don't learn, they're going to try to enslave you in Guyana in 2025. I'm here to teach them too, because they're intellectually ugly. And we have to let the beauty. David rather ask, must the beast always overcome the beauty? No, David, no. The beauty is constantly overcoming the beast, not without a fight. Good evening and welcome to Politics 101. We are on a mission because they're taking the partial part of the result of the September 1st election. They are celebrating it as the return of the black man to the plantation. Ooh, the PNC is dead. The WPA don't have members. APNU will not survive until they are celebrating the premature demise of the black man. And they're celebrating it because they got some of black men and black women to provide the optics. But optics are not substance. So they're celebrating. When you see they celebrate the demise of APNU and the PNC and so on, they're not just thinking about no political party. They're thinking about the demise of black beauty, black resilience. That's what. Because it's black beauties that are standing in the way of their ugliness. It's black power that is standing in the way of their big plan to disempower the black man. We are stuck in the 70s. No, we are bringing the 70s into the 2020s. W.B. Du Bois said the 20th century would be the century of the color line. And the 21st century, David Rudder asked, he said, the more things change, rearrange, everything remains the same. And he's saying to Brother Du Bois, wake up from your grave and come and make that proclamation. And Rudder says, is the 21st century going to be the century of the color line? Will our children keep running and running and running? Look, one is running in Bensnors, one is running in Beijing, China, one is running in Guyana. A black boy was killed, Quindon Bacchus. And the one that they charged for killing him walked free. You could kill a black man predictably and walk free in Guyana. Black man, black woman, decide whether that's what you all want. You are the sons and daughters of Maroons who went on the plantation and said, I'm not staying there. I'm running up to a compound in Jamaica. I'm running into the bush in Suriname. I'm running into the bush in Baracara, Guyana. You all come from Maroons who didn't take shit. No, never apologize for your identity. Brother Tacuma Ogunseye, good evening.
Hi, good evening, Dr. Hines, and welcome to your viewers. It's a pleasure to be back in the Politics 101 company or family.
And I don't have to tell you that you are not responsible for what I said in the last 15 minutes or so. Do I have to tell you that?
You don't.
Talk to us.
You don't.
Talk to us. Reflect on anything that I said just now to start off our interview tonight.
I think that you quite correctly point out what is the PPP's end game for Guyana. And that is to deny African people and Amerindian people the right to the birthright in this country. I mean, African people have had centuries of enslavement. We built this country from nothing. And now that we have oil, you have a set of rulers who have rejected socialism, have rejected any egalitarian economic model. And they are implementing unapologetically an economic system and a political system based upon Indian domination. It's a simple matter. For me, if any politician, regardless of the political party you belong to, who is conscious of the history of this country, and who is conscious of the fact that we work for hundreds of years without a cent, and that economic deprivation influence our economic and social condition today. And now that we have oil, any set of politicians, whether in the PPP, the AP, and you are wherever you are, and you reject the principle that the oil wealth must be used to correct historical injustices among the people of this country. And the major priority has to be Africans and Amerindians, given the reality of the Guyana situation, economy, and governance. And when a set of rulers reject that as a starting point, and then they go to United Nations, and they said to that international body that the African condition in Guyana is a consequence of our ancestors making bad decisions to plant provisions instead of planting rice. No, they're flying in the face of established history, but they're doing it because they're contemptuous of us. And in a big way, we are responsible for it because we should have them running a long time ago. Either you fix the problem or we run you out the place. And I will argue that African politics has to be a politics that recognizes the injustices that colonialism has done to all the ethnic groups in this country. And the African politics must see it as a necessity for us to remodel the country, both economically and politically, so that justice could be given to all our people. And any set of politicians who can't commit to that, we will run them out of the place. And the PPP leadership is long overdue to be run out of this place. And to the extent that they haven't been run out of the place is the extent of the African community willingness to tolerate their domination and their oppression. So you're quite correct. That is their line of march. But the challenge that we have is to deal with it and to put a timetable on it. You have to put in struggle. You have change will always come. There is no doubt in my mind that the way Africans vote, by the time the local government elections, by the time 2030, they will vote differently. But that is not the issue. The issue is having voted the way they voted, having created the economic, social, and political conditions which will drive certain economic and political and social forces, is whether by the time you reach 2030 and we vote differently, whether we could correct the damage that we have created by the way we vote 5 years ago. You see, that is the real challenge. I have no doubt that our people will learn their political mistake and correct their political behavior. But I'm not certain that come 2030, when we correct our political mistake in terms of the way we vote, whether we will have enough strength to undo the powerful social and economic forces that we allow to dominate by the way we vote in the last elections. That is my real concern.
Real concern, the Tacuma Ogunseye. You all hear it? He's saying we can always correct our voting behavior the next election. We can always rebuild the party groups. We can always get a new presidential candidate and all of those things that people are saying that we have to do. We can do all of that. But The thing is, the outcome of our vote at this election would have done damage that may be irreparable in the short term. That is the challenge we face, and that is what Brother Ogunseye is saying here. And that is what the PPP don't want you to hear. They are pleading, can Terence Campbell get David Hines to stop his politics of victimhood? Get David Hines to say black people are victims. Black people are not victims, or if they're victims, he shouldn't talk about it. So some of them are saying, we aren't victims. And some of them are saying, we are victims, but don't talk about it because you just get Indian people vexed. You all understand? If you get knocked, and you say, oh my God, you knocked me, you mustn't allow it because you go offend your neighbor. That's what they're telling us. And some of our politicians are dancing to that tune, not because they believe it, but because they have accepted the status quo and say if you're going to win elections, you can't offend Indian people. And really, you're not offending Indian people. Because when you talk to Indian people, they have a great understanding of black people issue. And sometimes Indian people speak out more about black people issue than black people. Dr. Hines, you have to stop this thing and you have to tell black people they must become capitalists. They must take chance. Well, I am not going to tell black people to take chance pushing drugs. What's the thing? Smuggling gold. That's a chance they want. Smuggling dope. That's what they want me. You check the capitalists in Guyana. And you see how these capitalists in Guyana make their money. You all hear they arguing? Who gonna sing like a canary? And who gonna settle to Miami? They're the capitalists. And if you check how they make their money, as I say, capitalism say you must take chance. They're taking chance. Is smuggling, gold, robbing the government with the collusion of the government. And they want me to tell black people that's what you must do. And every time a little black boy or girl take a chance, walk with them. Jail. No bail. Brother Tacuma Ogunseye, your thoughts on black capitalism?
You have put it very excellently. Capitalism, black people really can be capitalists. And I don't really want to go into a deep ideological discussion on capitalism per se. But I don't know, given the condition of black people economically, given the economic structure of this economy, given the economic structure of the world, I don't know where is the space for the development of black capitalism. By the time black capitalism begin to creep, we don't get dominated. We don't go into a new form of enslavement. So the question of capitalism is neither here nor there. There is no black capitalism to solve the problems of black people. And if we restrict the discussion to Guyana, where is the capital in Guyana that will drive African capitalism and make it competitive with Indian capitalism, Portuguese capitalism, and Europeans and external capital? Where is it? They're fooling Africans and Amerindians that we have a chance in that model. So there's no, we would be very stupid if we were to embrace African capitalism, whatever that means, as the way to liberate our people and the way to unite our races, we will be very stupid because it will not work. And you're seeing what Chinese capitalism is doing to Indian capitalism. And you're going to see what European capitalism going to do to the Portuguese and the Indian capitalism when the Europeans begin to bring ship more and more capital to Guyana as the economy advance. Soon way the Indians are boasting about and feeling good about, they're going to be paupers relative to big white capitalism. So I don't know there's any future in that. And even if there's a future in that, we don't have the capital basis to give that any serious shot. So we'll be wasting our time.
Yeah. And Brother Ogun, I know, we agree. And we want black entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
We want black entrepreneurship. We want black people to accumulate wealth. What we don't want is an accumulation of wealth that pauperizes the community. That is, when we think we're accumulating wealth, we end up accumulating poverty. Let me give you two things, and then you'll take the floor. During the campaign, an old PNC member, I'm not going to call his name because he hasn't given me permission, although I don't think he would mind me calling his name, but an old PNC member of the 70s and 80s, he came to me, I was at Melanie. He said, David, I hear you talking about a lot of things, but you don't talk about cooperatives. He said, that's how black people accumulate their wealth. They accumulate their wealth as a collective. That's how they accumulate their wealth. And I think I touched on the subject one or two times when I spoke after that. Ravi Deva said to me privately and publicly, David, cooperatives dead. So here we have an African elder saying, David, don't make the mistake of thinking that black people can accumulate wealth in the same way Indian people are accumulating wealth. And the cooperatives are important. And here is the Indian guru saying, David, tell your people to reject cooperatives and go to this free market kind of capitalism. Your thoughts on that?
It's a simple model that has proven itself throughout the world. Whenever people want to oppress you and dominate you, the first thing to do is to take you out of your historic construct. And I don't know, you have to be bright first to do that. When white people begin to colonize the rest of the world and they reach indigenous people, the first thing to do is destroy your gods, take away your gods, take away important symbols from you and weaken you and dominate you. And it's the same thing have dominated since umpteen thousand years. So when Rafi Deva them come with that, they come with nothing new. And if conscious African leaders and thinkers must see it, it is the condition that they got us in with street protests. They got us to buy into the notion, and with the help of white people, okay, to give up an important plank of our historic struggle. And when people don't have money to fight the way others may be able to fight and to sustain themselves, you have to fight with the tools that you have. And our tools is our bodies, resistance, come in the streets and make the point and force the system to look after our interests and to make political compromise. That's how we win independence. That's how we get the chains off our legs. And every weird African living in the world, anytime we give up the right to protest, we're in big trouble because we have nothing else. We don't have nuclear weapons. You don't have even a mother country with a nuclear weapon.
And we don't have big warships.
We don't have the big warships and and so forth and so forth. And anytime you see people telling you to give up your historical construct, the things that make you survive in this hostile world, you know they don't have your interest at hand. And you ought not to listen to them. So Rafidev could talk what he likes. I don't listen to Rafidev because Rafidev is not there to liberate me. Rafidev is there to help the PPP domination of me and African people. So I can't listen to him.
Well,
My problem is our own leadership. My problem is our own leadership. You know, one would have thought that after all of this enlightenment and modernization and access to the computer and the internet, and the world have become a very small place, that African political leaders will be more enlightened on the question of race and the defense of African interests. And I'm worried that the younger generation of politicians, those who have urged in the last elections to split the vote, I've listened very carefully. I haven't seen a self-criticism. Damage have been done, and they're behaving like they're not responsible in part for what have been done to our people and the country as a whole. And I'm watching at their politics and their political culture, which is very worrying because it is not inspiring for a younger breed of politicians. I've been careful not to say much on these matters because as an elderly person, the first thing there's one to invoke is that you're against young people. But I can't understand politics in this modern world. We're intelligent political people. They're far more academically brighter than me. But I don't think they're more politically intelligent than me. But I will concede academically they're probably far more superior than me. And they took the country and their constituents and their people down a road. And they see the results. And they're up to now, they haven't come and say, look, we were either correct or we were wrong. We made a misjudgment. They're not helping in the solution. They're behaving like overlords. That they could do what the hell they like to black people and Guyana and behave like if they have done nothing and look to blame everybody else except themselves. And that is my real concern. No self-criticism. And I keep asking myself, given the condition that our people demonstrated in these elections, if you didn't for the last 4 years doing what you have been doing, what would have been the result of the last elections? If all of the work we do, sensitizing African people about PPP domination and Indian domination, and large numbers of them behave the way they behave. Imagine if we didn't do that work for the last 5 years. I keep asking myself, what would have been the situation of our people? And I think we have to continue the work. I know it's going to be troubling because we have to deal with this question about electoral parties and electoral politics as of against community politics. And in Guyana, the party politics have been so pervasive and dominant that it leaves little space for community politics. So when the party gets it wrong, the community suffers 100% because the community have no tradition of self-defense. And I think going forward, as we will be tied to continuing electoral engagement, we have to equally spend time in building up community politics and African resistant politics, because at the end of the day, if we go into the elections without a heightened African resistance, you don't know the answer.
We don't know the answer, Brother Tacuma Ogunseye, co-leader of the Working People's Alliance, talking about doing the kind of community work, as you would notice there on the screen, Politics 101, sponsoring a course, Introduction to Pan-Africanism, Introduction to Pan-Africanism there. And you can enroll in that course. It started last week, but people can still enroll in the course. So Introduction to Pan-Africanism, geared at dealing with the popular education, preparing the young people. Kwayan always tell us, he said one of the problems with our politics is that we have politicians who don't understand politics. And not really politics in a narrow sense. They understand that. They understand politics as elections. What they don't understand is politics as power, and how power can destroy a group, a community, an ethnic group, a racial group, etc., etc. Brother Tacuma Ogunseye here tonight. Brother Tacuma, 2 years ago you were charged with I think they say terror or inciting racial hostility. Brother Kedaki, another WPA member, was similarly charged. And both cases were dismissed for want of prosecution. Your case a few weeks ago, Kedaki's case last week. We haven't had a chance to talk yet with you, but since I have you here, reflect on that against the backdrop of how this government has used the police to make people uncomfortable, because clearly there was no case, as the magistrate said, in your case. She upheld the no case submission by attorney Nigel Hughes because there was absolutely no case. And I have no doubt in my mind that the Attorney General and the PPP leaders knew there was no case, but they just wanted to make you an example to African people, that if opposition people and African people, if you dare respond, this is what we're going to do to you. Your comments.
Yes. Firstly, I want to once again thank Brother Nigel Hughes. In both cases, he was he defended us, and we are very extremely grateful to the brother. As you quite correctly said, they had no case from the start, but you got to understand the politics. Remember, I made the call for an African uprising, and I made I point out that if Africans use our position in this equation, we could close the show overnight. And it drove fear in the PPP, because they suddenly realized that after they were beating us down and boasting how they got us dominated, when I point to them that at the end of the day, is our brothers and sisters are in uniform. And as political people, they understood what I meant. And they decided, and they panic. And they decided that Ogunseye has to be put to his place. But more importantly, we have to send a message to the African community and the wider Guyanese community that we got power and we could use the police, okay, to do what we like. And of course, they could do that. They charge you. You know, they do what they like, and they charge you. But they knew that they were highly likely to win the case in court, and they didn't too care about winning the case in court, in my judgment, because they would have had to corrupt the magistrate. And when you have such a weak case, it puts into the magistrate or the judge under a lot of pressure, because their professionalism, comes into play. And look, no learned judge or magistrate would want to convict a person on shabby evidence, because these are things that come back to haunt you in your profession. So the government whole intention is a continuation of how the rule of place. The PPPs and Jagdeo method of governance in Guyana is to use the coercive institutions of the state to drive fear in the political opposition and to make every simple manner that we have used in the colonial days to get economic and social and political rights and progress, they try to criminalize it. So if you talk about resistance, resistance means terrorism, resistance is a bad word, we're going to banish you. If you proclaim African dignity or Amerindian dignity, okay, we banish you. So they have rewrite the political language of the country to suit themselves, and to a great extent the opposition play to that language. When they tell me no street protests, the answer is that we do street protests. They say you stick in the 70s, and probably I stick in the 70s. I'm glad if me stick in the 70s, I would have got the whole place upside down. I really want to return to the 70s, the politics of the 70s. You see, people talk and they talk and they talk and they talk and they talk, and they ain't thinking. Guyana need a return to the politics of the 70s.
The brother Tacuma Ogunseye here tonight. We are stuck in the 70s. They fear that the politics of the 70s is unleashed on them in Guyana. In the 70s, they were running and ducking for cover like cowards, those who were around at that time. Minus Moses Nagamuto and a few others. But these days now, they weren't even born. And if they were born, they had no sense of the 70s. What do they know of the 70s? Who only the 70s know? To paraphrase C.L.R. James. Brother Ogunseye, terrorist bombing in the middle of Georgetown. Venezuelans came in the morning in a boat and made his way to a gas station in Georgetown. Didn't worry about cameras. He gonna lay down a bomb and walk back or drive back to Virgin Eugene. Sparrow said, in Dan is the man in the van. That if I was a bright, I would be a damn fool. Are they making us damn fools here with the story about this bomber from Venezuela?
Okay, I want to first extend my personal condolences, and again the WPA condolences, because we did it before, to the family, the bereaved family, and the tragic death of that little innocent sister. Look, anytime there is a major bomb explosion in any society, and more so when it resulted in the loss of life, it's a serious matter, and it's also an unfortunate development regardless of the circumstances. But we have to, as a society, while we don't want to trivialize incidents that are important, we have to make sure that those who have the responsibility, the government and the police and the security forces and so forth, those who have the responsibility to protect the country and to decipher and to bring to justice the offenders, that they act above board. And I could tell you a lot of Guyanese are not convinced by the way in which the government is handling the matter. When this thing first happened, and I read the response of the president from where he was in Arabia, when he said that he will institute back death penalty, you don't get no evidence yet, no investigation, and you don't decide that what happened requires the government deciding that they will invoke or press for the death penalty. It makes me, I ask myself, are we into some kind of political gimmick? The story that they're telling us, is it the real story? And last night, yourself and Comrade London interrogate the matter. And I don't want to add much, but I agree with all the observation you all made on that program, and people have made in the press on this matter. I can't see how a terrorist, whether he's working as an agent of the sophisticated criminal gangs in Venezuela, or an agent of the Venezuelan government, I can't see how he could engage in such an amateurish operation. The man didn't even wear a dark shade, a little cap to pull on his face. It's like a man going to do something willfully wanting to be arrested. The only thing that impressed me is that the explosive, the bomb, was a credible bomb in terms of from what we heard in terms of the explosion. So the device seems to have had some level of professionalism in it. But everything else raises more questions than answers. And I'm concerned that they said very early the man confessed, and the speed to which the man confessed must have provided them some insight into motive. And I am looking through the papers and I listened to when the people passed through the courts, but there's no mention of motive. And in a situation like that, given everything that's happening in Guyana and the region and Guyana and Venezuela, motive become important in order for you to evaluate, okay, what is possibly facing the country going forward. And we have heard nothing about motive. So, like most Guyanese, I am a bit skeptical, but I'm hard pressed in light of the fact that the child died, in light of the fact that we have had previous explosions before the elections, that we see a pattern. Nobody have been arrested for those previous bombing. And what we see is the bombs relatively to the 3 incidents, this bomb seems to be more potent than the previous bombs. So as a citizen, I have a deep interest in trying to understand what is it we up against. And I don't want to, I know when you're caught in geopolitical engagement that we are, and these big powers are involved, they have the various agencies that could design all kinds of things to look however they want to look. So you have to be careful that you read the situation correctly. And I can't say on the basis of the evidence that is before the Guyanese people, I have a clear understanding of what we're up against. And I'm
Brother,
not convinced the government is, is coming straight with the Guyanese people.
Brother Tacuma Ogunseye here tonight on a Friday night. Brother Tacuma, I made a promise to Brother Sherrod Duncan that I will not bite into a lot of his time, as I usually do. But I have to give you an opportunity to speak to any issue that you wish to speak to that I have not asked you to.
Okay, I want to deal with this Mohammed story. Now that the Americans have asked for the extradition, but not that so much, is the PPP's response and behavior to Mohammed and how the population is interpreting it. I think that everybody is saying that the PPP is afraid of Mohammed. That is why they don't want him to go in parliament as opposition leader. And that is why they're anxious to get him out of the way. I don't buy into that, very frankly. I mean, and this is a hard political, I don't see the PPP see Mohammed as any electoral threat. Mohammed's best threat to the PPP was in these elections, and he proved not to be able to get Indian votes. And if potentially Win Party and Mohammed is to be a political threat, it's 5 years down the line. And PPP have a lot of time to deal with that threat. So I don't believe that PPP attitude to Mohammed is driven by any political fear of Mohammed. I think the PPP attitude to Mohammed is to get themselves closer and closer to the Americans and to demonstrate to the Americans and Washington that they are doing everything in their power to make sure that he's being extradited. And to the extent that he's not extradited immediately, it's a question of the courts and so forth and so forth. But their position is to put pressure on Mohammed in order to get closer and closer to the Americans, to use that to trade off. Because though the Americans have indictments for PPP people, and I think they're overpressing the Mohammed thing, overpressing Mohammed as a way to say to the Americans behind the scene, easy, man, easy. I think that is what's really playing out. And the local population is believing that the PPP is afraid of Mohammed electorally and politically. The PPP is not afraid of Mohammed electorally or politically, but they're afraid that the Americans may call PPP people card, and they're trying to get so close to the Americans and to be willing actors that they could have a deal to save the skin and the skin of the people.
Brother Tacuma here weighing in on the tussle between the Mohammeds and the PPP, because that's what it is. That's what it is. People can read. Now, we understand, Brother Tacuma, and we must understand that given a section of the population, given that a section of the population doesn't like the PPP, and so in what is this tussle between the PPP and Mohammed, they are going to go against the PPP. And I think I'm asking, do you agree that that is what is partly playing out, especially among sections of the African Guyanese population?
Yes. I mean, and you could understand it because that's how the lay person see the politics. But we have a duty to go deeper behind these things.
Yes.
And I'm trying to share with your viewers that more deeper, political insight. Because even if you take Mohammed to be an electoral threat, that threat can't realize itself till about 2030. So people is not under any electoral pressure from Mohammed, but they're under pressure from American behavior.
That's right. That's right. And so putting the Mohammed issue in larger context, as I've said on this program, I am less interested in Mohammed. If Mohammed and his father are guilty of what they are accused of, there is some criticism there. But if the government is proven to be in collusion with them, If the government got their own people doing what Mohammed is accused of doing, that's where my interest is. Because Mohammed ain't running no government. It's then the PPP who running the government. Am I wrong, Brother Ogunseye?
Quite right.
In taking that attitude?
Quite right. That is what is more important, because at the end of the day, they're there to protect the national interest. Muhammad is not there to protect the national interest at the time when he was doing what he was doing.
Right. Brother Tacuma Ogunseye tonight. Brother Tacuma, thank you very much for coming through after a long time, the election campaign and so on and so forth. But we are back. We are back to normal now, and so we'll see you quite regularly. Thank you very much, my brother.
Yes, and I have a better computer, which was part of the problem.
Brother Tacuma Ogunseye here tonight. Please, those of you who have not enrolled for the course, Introduction to Pan-Africanism, every Saturday afternoon, so we're on tomorrow at 4 to 6. It's a virtual course online, and once you register for the course, you will get a link. I think there's a small registration fee, but don't worry about that. That is not more important. What is important is for you to come into the course. And it's an 8-week course. We introduced the course last Saturday. We continue tomorrow from 4 to 6. The number to call is 592-624-11. Sorry, this is 7725. I think that's what it is. 7125. 7125. It's there on the flyer, so please enroll for the course. So those of you who are enrolled, I see you all tomorrow, and for the others, I will be back on Wednesday, live spare, and we will continue with our program, Politics 101. Have yourself a good weekend. Take some time to relax. If you're a workaholic, do something productive. See you.